China's real estate industry is collapsing.
The world's second largest economy is on the brink of collapse.
Apparently, the Chinese economy is on the brink of collapse in just a matter of days.
We are looking at the end of China as a political entity within a decade or two and an economic entity within a decade.
This is going to haunt China for the rest of the 21st century. The 21st century will not belong to China. It should and will belong to the United States.
For the past year, we've been flooded with reports that China is collapsing. Scores of videos have been released on YouTube that even state the exact number of days that China has left. China's days of explosive growth and technological advancement are now supposedly over, and its complete collapse imminent. But a groundbreaking report was just released that completely upends these predictions and reveals what will really happen to China and its economy in 2024. The reality is far more shocking, and it's not what you expect. So let's break down everything you need to know about China's economy in today's video. I also want to thank Beam for sponsoring today's important episode. Beam is a natural product I drink to help improve my sleep. And if you want to improve your sleep in 2024, watch to the end of today's video to learn more about our sponsor. Enter economist Dr. Wei Jianshan, the author of this groundbreaking report and one of the world's leading actual experts on China's economy. He's the executive chairman of PAG, one of the largest private investment firms in Asia. The million-dollar question that Dr. Shan addresses in his report is whether China can continue to grow and flourish as it has. The report is overflowing with jaw-dropping facts and statistics that will blow your mind, so let's break them down. China's economy has experienced severe challenges since 2022, especially in the housing sector. Legendary Financial Times economics commentator Martin Wolf showed that the housing sector, which accounts for 11% of China's GDP, has far underperformed other sectors of the economy, which have more or less resumed their pre-pandemic growth trajectory. In fact, China's real estate market has been a negative contributor to China's overall economic growth since 2022 and a big driver of the recent economic slowdown. The biggest question now is whether China's housing slump will become so severe that it infects and drags down the whole economy with it. And here is where things get interesting. In his report, Dr. Shan shows the crisis is currently cooling off. The sector's negative contribution to GDP growth has narrowed from about 4% in 2022 to less than 2% in 2023. The truth is that China will still meet its 5% growth target for 2023. In fact, the IMF even revised its forecast up to 5.4% on November 8th. So you might be thinking, how is China able to do this? The secret lies with a concept known as policy space, which allows China to sustain its growth even in the face of many crises. In fact, Dr. Shan reveals that China likely has more policy space than any other major economy in the world. The policy space simply means how many options a nation has to withstand economic crises that threaten its prosperity and even its existence. The report's following statistics will blow your mind. First, China is experiencing no inflation. Just let that sink in. While many Western countries have suffered from crippling inflation, which has noticeably affected our lives and wallets for many years now, China has completely avoided this plague. On top of this, China's interest rates are higher than in the US and much higher than in Europe or Japan. Also, its cash reserve ratio, which is the percentage of deposits that commercial banks must park with the central bank, is around 10.5% for large Chinese banks. That compares to a mere 0 to 1% for Western countries. As a result, China has considerable leeway in terms of monetary policy by either cutting its interest rates or its cash reserve ratio, or if needed, doing both at the same time, which no other major economy can. But this is just the beginning. The report reveals that China actually has a positive financial net worth, whereas Western countries such as the US, UK, Germany, France, and Italy are deeply in debt. So often Western media lectures us about how deeply in debt the Chinese government is and how reckless and irresponsible this is to the rest of the world. Clearly, this narrative is far from reality, not to mention completely hypocritical. And the facts once again show that China is in a league of its own among major economies. Dr. Shan continues, much ink has been spilled by the world's pundits about China's government debt. In truth, Chinese central government debt represents only about 21% of GDP. Local government debt, of course, is what has been getting all the attention, but estimates for those obligations range only from 50% to 80% GDP, including hidden liabilities. If we take the highest debt to GDP ratio of 110% for China's overall government debt, it still compares favorably with that of the US federal government, which is about 140% of GDP, and with Japan's central government debt of about 260% of GDP. Clearly, China is covered in terms of its debts. What's truly shocking here is that not even counted in this calculation of China's positive net worth is the nation's vast land and natural resources, all of which are government owned. As a result, China's financial net worth is likely underreported, and the country has considerable room to expand in terms of fiscal policy. But this is just the beginning. Western pundits have sounded the alarm, pointing to China's massive and now infamously indebted property developer, the Evergrande Group. China's current housing crisis was largely sparked by this and other big developers in the wake of new Chinese regulations on these companies' debit limits. It's been called China's Lehman moment, referring to the demise of the once revered American bank which triggered the 2008 financial crisis. But watch Dr. Shan dismantle these claims with cold hard facts about China's system that these pundits simply aren't aware of. The average loan-to-value ratio of mortgages in China's major cities is about 40%, which means that housing prices will have to fall more than half to produce negative equity for homeowners, which simply means a person's house is worth less than the money they own on it. This is not even remotely likely to happen. When you buy a house, the loan-to-value ratio indicates how much you pay up front. 40% means that Chinese people are paying on average a whopping 60% of their property price up front. This is astonishing, given that in the United States, first-time homebuyers typically pay about 6 to 7% upfront. And make no mistake, the housing prices in China's major cities are anything but cheap these days. Dr. Shan continues, moreover, Chinese homeowners cannot simply walk away from their mortgages if the value of their home plummets, as homeowners can in the United States. In mainland China, as in Hong Kong, Australia, and other jurisdictions, mortgages are unlimited personal liabilities. This is why during the 1997 Asian financial crisis, there was plenty of negative equity in Hong Kong's housing sector, but not a single bank failure. These are the kind of key insights that will shatter the Western narrative that China's housing crisis will infect and collapse the rest of China's economy. But Dr. Shan isn't finished yet. Just watch as he reveals the truth about China's financial system. Loans to property developers represent less than 6% of the loan book in the banking system, and all of those loans are secured by collaterals. Chinese banks are well capitalized, with an average capital adequacy ratio of more than 15%. The capital adequacy ratio measures a bank's strength and stability and indicates how big their buffer of capital is to cover potential losses. 15% is comparable to Western nations and far above the minimum requirements set by the Third Basel Accord, a framework developed in response to the 2008 global financial crisis. Dr. Shan continues with a surprising insight about China's non-performing loans, which in the US is known as subprime lending, or loans that borrowers are unable to pay back. The average non-performing loan ratio of Chinese banks is about 1.6%. Yes, NPLs have been rising in recent years, but banks are selling or writing them off quickly because the regulatory requirement in China for setting aside reserves to cover NPLs is about 150%, more than any other country I know of. Therefore, it is just not worth it for Chinese banks to hold on to NPLs. Clearly, China's banking system is far more robust and stable than the Western media would have us to believe. But Dr. Shan doesn't simply claim everything is sunshine and roses in the Chinese economy. In fact, he states China's real estate sector will face short-term, perhaps even long-term pain. However, the key insight from Dr. Shan once again is that this pain is confined to one sector and won't drag down the rest of the financial system and China's economy with it. This is the crucial point that the West simply doesn't understand. In fact, while the real estate sector was indeed a negative contributor to growth in 2022, in the same year, other sectors, such as the green and digital economy, more than offset this, resulting in a net positive GDP growth in 2022 2022 of 3%. Indeed, China leads the world in the fourth industrial revolution and dominates its associated industries by now. Just take a look at the following shocking data from Dr. Shan's report, which shows how China went from literally zero to hero in many advanced industries in a very short time, including high-speed trains, wind and solar power, industrial robots, and lithium batteries. Now, you'd think the US trade war with China would have inflicted serious damage to the Chinese economy, as the US has been China's largest trading partner every year for the past decade. But Dr. Shan once again reveals the shocking truth. Not only has it not dampened US-China trade, but bilateral trade in fact reached an all-time high of about $700 billion just last year. Hidden in this trade relationship, Dr. Shan reveals a secret that is probably the most stunning insight of this entire report. Take a look at this graph, which shows that since the start of the trade war, as India's exports to the US have surged, so have its imports from China. In fact, they've increased in virtual lockstep with each other. What's more, the same is true for Vietnam and ASEAN, the Association of 10 Southeast Asian Nations. Simply put, these countries have all effectively become conduits for China's indirect exports to the United States. Clearly, the Chinese have found a way to circumvent the fallout from this trade war. But there's also a technology war, in which the US has banned high-tech exports to China in areas ranging from advanced semiconductor chips to quantum computing and AI. Dr. Shan admits this will, in the short term, dampen China's technological capacity, but he then once again reveals the astonishing truth that continues to elude the West. In the long run, these bans will not dampen China's technological capacity. China has a strong technological base, which export bans are unlikely to affect. It has the means to catch up in areas it is behind, owing to it years of value-added manufacturing and innovation. And thanks to the export bans, it has a strong incentive to develop its own versions of now unavailable technologies. In fact, China's pace of innovation will only be slowed if the likes of Qualcomm and Nvidia are permitted to continue to sell and dominate the Chinese market, because their products are currently better and cheaper. Paradoxically, high-tech sanctions on China have induced an acceleration in technological progress. We are already witnessing this acceleration. In just the past 3 months, China achieved major technological breakthroughs in several areas, and here are just a few of the selected headlines. And crucially, as Dr. Shan points out in his report, all of these, except the last one, the cancer drug recently approved by the US FDA, involve technologies banned or sanctioned by the United States. At the same time, China has overtaken the US in scientific papers published in peer-reviewed, respected international journals annually, and China's number of patents has skyrocketed for over a decade, and the number of annual patent applications in the country is now more than the US, Europe, Japan, and South Korea combined. When China is backed into a corner, there's no country that can better innovate its way out and turn disadvantages into advantages. Simply put, betting against China is always a losing strategy. When Dr. Shan was a professor at the Wharton School of Business, the world's oldest elite collegiate business school, he studied the success of Silicon Valley and how the US came to dominate several key tech sectors. He came up with a list of 5 necessary conditions to achieve this, which he also shares in this report. Dr. Shan then reveals the shocking truth. China now possesses all 5 of these conditions, which together are sufficient for it to catch up in almost any technology and to take the lead in some. It is just a matter of time. A crucially relevant development here is also that China's manufacturing capabilities have deepened immensely, becoming more sophisticated and advanced as it moves up the value chain into higher value, higher tech products. As a result, its total share of the world's manufacturing value added keeps rising and is now at an astonishing 31%. The perfect example illustrating this is Apple. In 2019, China's value added to iPhones represented only 4% of the phone's retail value. Fast forward to today, and this number is now 25%. As Dr. Shan points out, that helps explain why Apple is so attached to manufacturing in China, which also now happens to be its largest market in the world. In fact, take a look at the following chart, which shows the astonishing reality of just how little progress Apple has made in moving its manufacturing out of China. As Dr. Shan states, Apple's efforts to diversify manufacturing away from China will make almost no difference in the foreseeable future. Now, all this may sound well and good, but there is one thing that countless China experts in the West have seized on as undeniable proof that China is still about to collapse, and that is the demographic decline. To be fair, China's population and labor force have been shrinking and aging for over a decade. Its birth rate has dropped sharply and nearly halved since 2016 to under 10 million births in 2022, the lowest in the country's history. Indeed, this is one of China's most pressing issues. But even here, Dr. Shan reveals the incredible truth, backed with solid data. First, despite this decline, China's GDP has doubled over the same period. It's true its productivity increase has slowed down in recent years, but it has still managed to propel economic growth. Second, China again has significant policy space to offset its aging population. Once again, the economist Martin Wolf has shown that the fall of China's working population can be fully offset for the next 10 years by moving more people from underdeveloped areas to the cities. Dr. Shen adds that China's urbanization rate is only 65%, compared with 91% for Japan and 85% for the US. In addition, Dr. Shan reveals that China can simply increase the retirement age above 60 for men and 50 for women, both of which are well below the world average. Importantly, Dr. Shan also reveals that China is actively preparing for a smaller workforce with the help of AI and automation. China is now at the forefront of the industrial automation, as evidenced by having installed 50% of the world's industrial robots. Dr. Shan also asserts it's these kinds of huge R&D investments that set it apart and will prevent it from falling into the dreaded middle-income trap which has troubled so many developing countries. And now we get to the one simple question Dr. Shan has for the naysayers that will shatter this economic collapse narrative. If the international community is so bullish on Japan, which has worse demographic issues, why not China? Enough said. But everyone, I'll leave you with another outstanding quote from Dr. Shan, which perfectly sums up the future of China. China is not without its economic challenges. It will take a couple of years of policy stability and concrete policy support for the private sector to fully regain confidence. But the economy is underperforming its full potential, and China's economic fundamentals are sound. Its government has ample policy space to tackle its current economic slowdown, and its industrial development has positioned it well for the future. All of this is to say that China's growth, despite the naysayers, will likely continue for the foreseeable future. Everyone, now let's talk about sleep and how you can make 2024 your best year of sleep yet. A few months ago, I had the opportunity to try Beam, and it has fundamentally changed the way I prepare for bed and allowed me to achieve some of my best sleep in many years. I know most of my YouTube audience is above the age of 40, and as we age, sleep becomes our #1 priority for our bodies to recover. So I started taking Beam's signature product, Dream, which is a nighttime blend of powerful ingredients like reishi mushrooms, magnesium, and melatonin. So let me tell you about my exact bedtime routine now. About 30 minutes before bedtime, I simply mix in 1 scoop of Dream Blend into hot water and mix it with the Beam frother. Not only am I sleeping the best I have in years, but my favorite thing about this product is the taste. I've been drinking the peanut butter cocoa and cocoa cinnamon blends, and honestly, it's like having a little treat before bed. There is no sugar and it's only 15 calories. As always, you have my promise as a content creator that I only recommend products that I personally used and tested. I've been taking Beam for over 6 months now, and I can confidently say that I highly recommend this product to you. If you struggle with sleep and are looking for a healthy and natural option, simply click the link on my description to get 35% off your first order when you subscribe, and then 20% off all following orders. Plus, when you subscribe, you'll receive a free frother, and you can pause, skip, or cancel anytime. So there is zero risk to you. So once again, I want to thank Beam for sponsoring today's important video about the truth about China's economic collapse. As we've proven in today's video, China's economy most definitely will not collapse. It will continue to grow, and this is the perfect video as we transition into 2024. Once again, thank you for Beam for sponsoring this important video. Click the link below, get started today, and make 2024 your best year of sleep. Everyone, it's been an honor to make videos for you in 2023. I'm so looking forward to the new year. Thank you for your incredible support, and we'll see you all in our next video soon.